Hello and welcome to episode 1 of whatever this show is called.com. So today I'm going to explain very quickly how you can make a question page like this. The idea is simply anyone can visit this website, enter a question in the box, and then whoever owns it can answer the questions. The key thing is if I open this incognito tab and then enter my question on this page here, so this could be somebody else on a separate device, hello, it updates in real time across both pages, and then from this UI console I can view all of this data. This doesn't have to be using Hasura, this is just an example, but this could be on any database really, as long as you're using GraphQL. I've seen this new hello, which doesn't have an answer, and of course I could also write an interface where I could log in and answer the questions without having to go through this. This is just, for example, hello to, and everything updates in real time. So the key benefit to this is it's very little code and very easy to set up. So let's walk through exactly how this works. So this is the website so far. Mostly so far it's been done in Svelte, just because I was curious how that works, but again, could be done in any language for the front end. This whole site has 0 backend code so far. And all I've done here is using Apollo GraphQL client, linked to the Hasura URL, which it gives you. So you can view your URL here. Created a subscription, which you can do just by, clicking as a new subscription. I want the questions and I want to order it in descending order so that the newest one appears at the top, and I want these keys to be selected from this data. Once I've got this, I can test it all from within here. This is the sort of data that I'm getting out, and once I'm happy with that, I can copy this and then into my code, go to my questions page. You can see I just pasted literally what the GraphQL Explorer has given me into this variable, and then I've used the GraphQL client to subscribe to that query. Actually, this is the mutation for adding a question. So how that works is you just do the same thing. You do a mutation, and I want to update the questions by their primary key. Sure. So we'll want to pass in the ID. We can click this little $, and that means that this is going to be a user-defined input, and we want to set the answer again to a user-defined input, and we can return the ID if it's successful. So here we can test. If I go ID 28 and type in goodbye, run the mutation. Oh, variable ID of int is position expecting int. This is actually a bug, I think, with GraphQL, or at least Hasura's implementation, where this is a unique required key, which means that the type is int exclamation mark, but when I click here it doesn't actually complete it properly, so I have to do that. And this returns me the ID, which means it's been successful. If I run my questions subscription again, then you'll see the answer has changed, and you'll also see it's changed here. So once my test is okay, I can do the same thing. I can copy this whole mutation string that it gives me, and that's how I paste it in here. So the client, as you can see, is very simple. I import some stuff like the GraphQL client, the session because this site you can log in and then I can, bind a question to a user if they exist. Then I'm defining some variables where I'll put the data, questions initialized to an empty array, and the question, which is the value that they type into the input box. There's some styles here, and then I've got my form, which is just a text area, which the value is bound to that question variable. And on click, we call this askQuestion function. This askQuestion function just gets a new fingerprint for the user, gets the current timestamp, and then does our GraphQL mutation that we've defined earlier, passing in all of the details that it will want, and then resetting the input afterwards. Pretty simple. If there are questions that it's loaded from GraphQL, then we just loop over each of them. This is just destructuring the values from each question, and we render them here. Else, we just show a loading screen, because when the subscription is fetching, we won't have any data, and we don't want to show a blank screen if it's not finished loading yet. So hopefully that should give a good overview of how that all works. Pretty brief, but it is pretty simple, and one of the important things to make this very easy and not requiring any backend code is this Hasura tool. Again, you don't have to use this at all. This could easily be done with any implementation in any language of a GraphQL server. And some data store. It's just that Hasura links a GraphQL server with all of its schema and resolvers. It does all of that for you based on what you create in this UI. So creating my questions table was literally a case of clicking add table, typing the name, and then I can select, if I want an auto incrementing ID and make it unique, and if I want my question text here, I can make a text one, give it a default value, all this sort of thing I create in here. And this is actually creating the migrations for Postgres, the queries to get things out of Postgres, the resolvers for GraphQL, the schema for GraphQL, and it's doing all of that for me based on effectively a form that I fill in. Maybe I haven't played with this enough to know, but I expect that if you were to get to a really complicated app and wanted to do a lot of back-end processing and control and authentication and that sort of thing, maybe you'd run into some limitations here. But for my use case, I just want to do things quickly and reliably without having to faff around too much, and this seems to be working very well so far. So I think that's it for this short episode of whatever I called this show at the beginning of the episode.com, and see you next